I need you to stop everything, not because something terrible is coming, because something is closing and something is opening simultaneously. And the window in which both of those things are true at the same time is narrower than you realize. Because the specific urgent quality of this reading is not the urgency of danger, it is the urgency of threshold, of someone standing at a door that is in the process of moving and who has not yet decided which side of it to be on when it finishes. You are at the threshold, the door is moving, and you have very little time left to be on the right side of it. I want to begin with what is closing, because the very little time left is at its most honest. The time left before a particular version of your life becomes definitively unavailable. Before the specific arrangement of circumstances and opportunities and open questions that currently exists in a particular dimension of your life resolves into something that no longer has room for the choices you have not yet made, something is closing. Not catastrophically, not in the dramatic, everything ends at once way of a door slamming shut with finality and force. In the quiet, gradual, sometimes imperceptible way of a door that has been slowly moving for a period of time and that is approaching in this specific window of 2026 the point at which the available opening is no longer wide enough to step through. You have been aware of this door, possibly without naming it explicitly to yourself, in the specific, intuitive, back of the mind quality of knowing that something has a timeline on it without having allowed yourself to fully confront what that timeline means in practical terms. The timeline is now, not later, not after the next thing settles or the current situation clarifies or you feel more ready than you currently feel. Now, let me describe what is closing in the specific form. I am reading it. There are two things. The first is a situation that has been sitting in a state of unresolved potential. Something between you and another person, or between you and a path, or between you and a version of your own life that has been possible but not yet chosen. Something that has been held open by the specific quality of not yet decided that has remained available because neither the yes nor the no has been fully offered. The not yet decided state is ending, not because you have made a decision, because the circumstances that were holding the space of the not yet decided open are themselves changing, because whatever has been on the other side of the potential, the person or the path or the possibility is moving, is reaching the point in its own development where the continued availability of the unresolved potential requires a response that has not arrived. The window of mutual availability is closing, not because anything has been decided against you, because time has its own decisions, and time is making one now. The window of mutual availability is closing, not because anything has been decided against you, because time has its own decisions, and time is making one now. I want to describe what the closing of this window feels like from the inside, because you may have been sensing it without being able to name what exactly you were sensing. It feels like pressure with no obvious source. The specific low-grade background quality of something pressing against your awareness from a direction you cannot quite identify. Not anxiety about a specific threat. The more diffuse pressure of something that needs attention that has been not quite getting attention, that has been sitting in the periphery of your conscious focus, occasionally surfacing and then being redirected for long enough that its continued peripheral presence has accumulated its own weight. That pressure is the window, making itself felt not loudly, but consistently, and with a quality that has been intensifying rather than diminishing, which is the specific signature of a closing rather than a holding open. Open windows feel neutral. Closing windows produce pressure. The pressure you have been feeling is real, and this reading is naming its source. The second thing that is closing is a chapter. The specific, identifiable, has a name, even if you have not named it, chapter of your life that the recent period has constituted. The chapter characterized by whatever has been the defining quality of this stretch, whether that is a period of building or a period of waiting or a period of navigating something difficult or a period of being in the specific suspended quality of someone who is between one version of their life and the next. Whatever this chapter has been, it is completing, and the completing of it is not a loss. It is the natural, appropriate, always going to happen culmination of something that had a beginning and has had a middle and is now arriving at its end. The end of a chapter is not the end of the story. It is the page turning, and the page is turning now. Now what is opening? Because the most important piece of this reading is not what is closing. What is opening is what deserves your full attention and your full readiness. Something extraordinary is available on the other side of the threshold, not vaguely, specifically. In the specific, concrete, this is real quality of something that has been assembled and is ready and is positioned to be the defining feature of the next chapter of your life, if you are ready to step into it when the door completes its movement. The next chapter of your life is extraordinary. I want to say that directly, not as encouragement, as the specific, energetically grounded observation of someone who is looking at what is on the other side of where you currently stand and who is describing what they see. What they see is extraordinary. In the relational dimension, something that has the specific, settled, genuinely different from prior versions quality of a connection that is sized correctly for who you are now rather than for who you were in prior chapters. Something that does not require the specific ongoing adjustment of fitting yourself into a space that was not quite right. Something that is simply right in the way that things that are genuinely aligned are simply right. In the material dimension, a quality of resource and opportunity and the practical daily life texture of what is available to you that corresponds to what you have built rather than to what the prior chapter was rewarding. The correction of an imbalance between what you have offered and what has been returned. In the interior dimension, a quality of settled self-knowledge that comes from having moved through what this chapter required and having arrived on the other side of it, knowing things about yourself that the chapter produced and that the prior version of you did not yet have. All of it on the other side of the threshold. Waiting, all of it on the other side of the threshold. Waiting. I want to give one more specific dimension of what is on the other side, because I think the specific quality of the waiting matters for how you understand the urgency. What is on the other side is not patient waiting. It is active waiting. The specific, ready, fully assembled quality of something that has been prepared to meet you and that is holding in a state of readiness that is itself time limited. That requires your crossing to activate. That cannot simply hold indefinitely in the state of readiness it currently occupies. The extraordinary thing on the other side is ready for you now, not in the vague, always available way of something that will be there whenever you arrive in the specific. This configuration requires this timing way of something that the combination of your readiness and its readiness and the configuration of circumstances that makes both of those things true simultaneously is itself a window. Two readinesses aligned. The conditions that produce that alignment are not permanent. They exist in this window, and inhabiting this window by crossing the threshold is what allows the alignment to do what it is aligned to do. I want to speak to the very little time left in its most specific form, because this is the most important information in this reading, and it deserves its clearest possible delivery. You have until approximately the end of this month, perhaps slightly beyond, perhaps slightly less. The specific window has a quality of approximately rather than exactly, because the threshold, like most real thresholds, is not a precise date but a zone, a period within which the door is in its final movement, within which the choices that have been available in the way they have been available are in their final window of availability. Within that zone, you have a choice to make, not a complicated choice, not one that requires extensive analysis or the gathering of additional information or waiting for conditions to become more favorable. The conditions are not going to become more favorable. This is the favorable condition, the specific, assembled, this is it quality of circumstances that have aligned in a way that makes what has been theoretically possible practically available. The choice is simply whether to step through. Tell me in the comments if this reading is finding its address, if the door I am describing, the thing that is closing and the thing that is opening, has a specific form in your actual life right now. If the urgency of the timing matches something you have been feeling without having been able to fully name it, tell me where you are standing in relation to the threshold. I want to speak to what stepping through actually requires, because the urgency of this reading might suggest that stepping through is a single dramatic action, a grand gesture or a significant declaration, or a move that announces itself as the crossing of a threshold. It is not. Stepping through the threshold I am describing requires something considerably quieter than that, and considerably more fundamental. It requires deciding. The specific, clean, no more deferring quality of someone who has been in the not yet decided state and who chooses consciously and with full awareness of what they are choosing to be done with not yet decided, to convert the not yet into either the yes or the no, to release the specific resource-consuming quality of maintaining something in a state of open question indefinitely. The deciding is the stepping through, not the acting on the decision, not the implementation of whatever the yes or the no requires in practical terms. The deciding itself, the interior moment of choosing, the specific, completed, nobody can take this back now quality of having made up your mind. That is available to you right now. In this reading, in this moment, you do not have to wait until you are somewhere else or until some other condition is in place or until you feel more ready than you currently feel. Ready is not what is required. Decided is what is required. And decided is something you can be right now. I want to speak to what is on the other side of the deciding for those of you who are sitting with the weight of what is being asked, because I know this is not small. The thing that is in the not yet decided state has been there for a reason. The reason is real. The reason has had weight, has produced the specific, legitimate, this is not just fear quality of hesitation that comes from someone who has considered their options carefully, and who has found genuine complexity in the considering. I am not dismissing that complexity. I am telling you that the complexity has had its time, that the period in which the complexity was the appropriate primary experience of this decision has passed, that what remains after the complexity has been given its full due is something simpler than the complexity has been allowing you to see. What you actually want underneath the complexity, underneath the analysis, underneath the careful weighing of options and considerations, and the specific, very Virgo quality of thorough examination before commitment. What you actually want is there, has been there throughout the complexity, has been the thing the complexity was protecting you from acting on before you were certain it was the right thing to act on. You are certain now. The certainty has been there for longer than the complexity has been. Comfortable acknowledging, act on the certainty. Act on the certainty. I want to say something about how to access that certainty if it does not feel immediately available, because the complexity has been present long enough that the certainty underneath it may not be immediately legible. The certainty is available through a specific practice. Stop the analysis for 30 seconds, not permanently, not as a general policy, for 30 seconds. Give yourself 30 seconds in which the analyzing of the options and the weighing of the considerations and the very Virgo thoroughness that has been the texture of your engagement with this decision is paused, where none of those things are operating. And in that 30 seconds, ask one question. What do I actually want? Not what is reasonable, not what makes practical sense, not what would be the appropriate thing to want given the circumstances. What you actually want, the unfiltered, pre-analysis, already known before the analysis begins version. The answer to that question is the certainty. It is there in 30 seconds. You do not need more analysis to access it. You need less. Let me speak to what happens after the deciding. The door does not close on you. I want to say that directly because I think the urgency of this reading could produce a specific anxious quality of someone who is afraid that if they do not move perfectly and immediately, the door will be shut and the opportunity will be lost. That is not how this works. The deciding, once made, begins its own momentum, begins moving you in the direction of the threshold in a way that the not yet decided state was preventing, begins producing the specific, natural, one thing leading to another quality of someone who has chosen a direction and whose life is now organizing itself around the chosen direction. The organizing takes whatever time it takes. The deciding is the thing that needs to happen in the window. The implementing follows from the deciding in its own appropriate sequence. So the question is not whether you can organize everything within the window. The question is whether you can decide within the window. You can, as we close, I want to give you the full image of this threshold moment. A door. One side is the chapter that has been the specific, known, fully inhabited version of your life that this period has constituted, with all its specific qualities. The difficulties and the developments and the specific cumulative has made you who you are quality of everything this chapter has required of you. The other side is the chapter that is beginning, not fully visible from where you are standing, not available to be fully seen until you have crossed, but present in its quality, present in the specific extraordinary quality that I described when I talked about what is opening, present in a way that your intuition can register even when the full picture is not yet available to the analytical mind. And between the two sides, you standing at the threshold, in the final portion of the window in which the threshold is still a threshold and not a closed door. The door is moving, Virgo, not toward closed, toward a different configuration, one that will no longer have quite this quality of active availability that it has right now. What you do in this window matters, not because you will fail if you do not act, because you will have crossed when it was time to cross, in the window when crossing was available, in this form, if you act now. And crossing when it is time to cross is how chapters end correctly, and how extraordinary new chapters begin. I want to add one final thing. The urgency of this reading is not designed to frighten you into acting before you are ready. It is designed to tell you that you are already ready, that the readiness has been present for longer than the complexity has been comfortable acknowledging, that the very serious quality of this moment is not a warning of danger, but a recognition of significance. This moment is significant, not in the way that frightening moments are significant, in the way that turning points are significant, in the way that the specific, rarely available, exactly right conditions, quality of a threshold is significant. You are standing in exactly the right conditions to cross, and the crossing, Virgo, is something you have been moving toward since the beginning of this chapter, since the first moment this question entered your life, since before you knew it was going to become the question that it has become. You have been moving toward this threshold. You are at it now. The door is in its final movement, and you have just enough time, step through